It's tough. It's tough. Like he's the best. He's the best player in the world right now, and we gotta beat him as a team.
So that is remarkable praise from the opponent. Meanwhile, many people watching last night were abuzz. LeBron James tweeting, "Greatness, appreciate it while you can, people." #KD. The Hall of Famer Allen Iverson tweeting, "You great killer." There was all that reaction and more. We will have much more on this performance coming up in just a few minutes. In the meantime, back to our football crew. We'll play a game called Sophomore Slump or Bump, talking quarterbacks. Jeff Saturday, let's talk Jeff Burrow. Sophomore, slump or bump?
I'm going bump. Listen, I know he's coming off an ACL, but I actually think that will help his timing. I think it will encourage him for pre-snap reads. Last year when everything kind of broke down, he went right back to his athleticism and made plays with his legs. I think this year he'll be more focused on staying in the pocket, protecting himself. So I actually think his numbers will go up. I'm excited to watch him. I think he started great last year, and I think he'll continue to improve this year.
I like it. Mike Tannenbaum, we'll talk about Justin Herbert. Slump or bump?
Bump, 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 and a bigger bump. He played in 15 games last year, but in the rarest of situations, he got thrown in. Remember, Tyrod Taylor had a weird medical situation. He has a whole offseason. I love what they've done with the offensive line. He's going to be well protected. I work with his quarterback coach, Shane Day. They'll emphasize fundamentals. He is a high-talented, high-character player. He has massive upside.
I'm with you. I already predicted him to be the MVP. Graziano, let's talk about Tua. Slump or bump?
I say bump for Tua. I'll keep it positive. I think he has to bump because last year was a learning year for him. Had some struggles and had to go in and out of the lineup with Ryan Fitzpatrick there. I think a full off season for Tua. We got the wrong Alabama guy.
That's my fault.
Yeah.
That's my fault. I missed one. I was supposed to go to Jeff Saturday on Jalen Hurts. Score that E1 if you were keeping score at home. My apologies. I will say we wanted to get to Tua anyway. So one way or another, we were going to go bump on Jalen Hurts and we will go bump on Tua. Although the big story coming out of yesterday, and you might have seen this on social media if you were following in the middle of the day, is that Tua threw 5 interceptions during practice yesterday, during a mini-camp workout. And Jeff Saturday, I know that combined with a story that we had on him recently had you at least a little bit concerned.
Yeah, medium level of concern here, Green. I mean, when you think about, it's not just the 5 interceptions yesterday, right? I mean, we publish what everybody's doing in OTAs and accuracy, and, we make all these comments. Every coach thinks every quarterback's great in June. But when you look at the comments he had last year, Greeny, about I really wasn't that prepared. I didn't know the offense. I didn't have full command. I just kind of rode with whatever play was in there. Those are the things that bring concern because now you question in your head if you're in the locker room, well, is this because of lack of preparation or is this because we're asking him to throw balls into windows that we would not do in the season? So I think it's mixed for me. I usually don't get too concerned over guys in OTAs and minicamps, but this, because of the conversations he's had prior in the offseason, gave me a little bit of concern and hesitation.
Mike T., how do you see it?
Well, I think context is everything. We don't know what was asked at practice yesterday in terms of those 5 interceptions. Is he working on the deep ball? So, look, it was really bad weather down here yesterday. So I am not panicking. I am concerned because when he came out, he is short, he is slow, and he's coming off a major hip surgery. Now, he could have a really good representative career, Greeny, but he's going to have to be accurate. He's going to have need to have great anticipation. So this is a really big offseason. I wouldn't put too much into one day in June, but I would be concerned. And look, they signed Jacoby Brissett, and we saw last year Brian Flores was not scared to make a change if necessary. So we'll monitor the situation very closely.
I think that's reasonable. And Dan, it sort of does tiptoe up to my next question, which is, how firm do we think the commitment in Miami is to Tua long term? I know they just drafted him number 5. There was all this Deshaun Watson conversation once upon a time. How firmly entrenched do we feel he is in that spot?
I think pretty firmly, but you mentioned Deshaun Watson. They were a factor in those discussions earlier this offseason. I think they probably would be again if those discussions were to come up again. That would be a significant sort of major established upgrade. I don't think they're looking to upgrade over Tua Tagovailoa. I think it's more about being open to that kind of possibility of a major one. Right now, I think they're working with him. I do think, to Mike Tannenbaum's point, he probably is working on the deep ball. His longest pass last year gained 35 yards, so he has to work on the deep ball. It reminded me a little bit of a veteran pitcher in spring training in my baseball days who got lit up in spring training.
Right.
Oh, I'm working on a new pitch. I don't know if I'll ever throw it, but this is the time to figure it out.
Well, so, Jeff, I see it both ways, because on one level, yes, it's unfair to judge him off of last year. He was coming off the major injury. He was a rookie, no preseason, all that stuff. But the other side of it is this is a really good football team that has expectations of winning right now, and the quarterback had better be ready to do it, or they're going to have to find someone who is.
Exactly right. I was about to say that. Like, from Brian Flores, it's kind of the enemy of your success, right? Is that you put your team in the conversation now to push for the AFC East. Your quarterback can't be the guy that's holding you back. And I will say this, I don't care what coach put anything in, you do not throw 5 interceptions. I went back, and I know Jacoby Brissett threw 2 interceptions, so they had 7 picks in one practice. I'm praying that's all because of rain, because I don't care what offense you're installing. You don't want turns. I don't care if you're practicing the deep ball, where you're going to put it. You don't throw it. Don't even begin that habit of giving the ball to the other squad. We don't do that. And in any offense I've ever been in, whether it was in Indy or Green Bay, those were the death nails. You do not play around with turning the ball over. That would be a concern, again, because of the conversations earlier in the offseason about not knowing the playbook.
Mike T, to put a ribbon on it, if you're in charge of the organization, how do you view it?
Yeah, again, I'm concerned, and then we're going to get to training camp. And again, I think Coach Flores deserves credit. Kyle Van Noy had a good year. Someone he brought from New England, they moved on. So I don't think he's reticent to move on from Tua in terms of benching him if he doesn't play well. So they'll monitor it. I'm sure they're concerned, but they're not overreacting. It's interesting that Jeff Saturday, as a former offensive lineman who does nothing when the pads aren't on in June, can critique another player when they're just over there, stretching.
Fair enough. We're taking shots this morning.
From?
But no, that was just out of nowhere, but I liked it. All right, as we continue, the Bucs had the lead, and then Kevin Durant happened. Can KD now carry the Nets into the conference finals? We have the very latest from Brooklyn. Next.